Артуra Heyli. His thoughts were interrupted by Denise. Leaning towards him, she said, "Surely you are not going to give up so easily, Dr. O'Donnell? Please don't let my father get away with that." The old man snorted. "There is nothing to get away with. It's a perfectly clear situation. For years the natural balance of nature kept populations in check. When the birth rate became too great, there were famines to offset it." Orden Brown put in, "But surely some of that was political. It wasn't always a force of nature." "I'll grant you that in some cases." Eustace Swan waved his hand airily. "But there was nothing political in the elimination of the weak." "Do you mean the weak or the unfortunate?" "Very well," O'Donnell thought. "If you want an argument, I'll give you one. I mean what I say. The weak." The old man's voice had a sharper tone, but O'Donnell sensed he was enjoying this. When there was a plague or an epidemic, it was the weak who were wiped out, and the strong survived. Other illnesses did the same thing. There was a level maintained, nature's level. And because of this, it was the strong who perpetuated themselves. They were the ones who served the next generation. Do you really think, Eustace, that mankind is so degenerate now? Amelia Brown had asked the question, and O'Donnell saw. She was smiling. "She knows that Swan's enjoying this," he thought. "We're moving towards degeneracy," the old man answered her. "At least in the Western world. We're preserving the cripples, the weaklings, and the disease-ridden. We are accumulating burdens on society, non-producers, the unfit, unable to contribute anything to the common good. Tell me, what purpose does a sanatorium or a home for incurables serve? I tell you, medicine today is preserving people who should be allowed to die. But we're helping them to live, then letting them spawn and multiply, passing along their uselessness to their children and their children's children." O'Donnell reminded him the relationship between disease and heredity is far from clear. Strength is of the mind as well as the body. Eustace Swan snapped back. "Don't children inherit the mental characteristics of their parents and their weaknesses?" "Not all of the time." This was between the old tycoon and O'Donnell now. The others sat back listening. "But a lot of the time they do, well, don't they?" O'Donnell smiled. "There is some evidence that way, yes." O'Donnell smiled. "There is some evidence that way, yes." Swan snorted. "It's one of the reasons we've so many mental hospitals, and patients in them, and people running to psychiatrists. It could also be that we're more aware of mental health. Swan mimicked him. It could also be that we're breeding people who are weak, weak, weak. The old man had almost shouted the last words. Now a bout of coughing seized him. I'd better go easily, O'Donnell thought. He probably has high blood pressure. Just as if O'Donnell had spoken, Eustace Swan glared across at him. The old man took a sip of brandy. Then, almost malevolently, he said, "Don't try to spare me my young medical friend. I can handle all your arguments and more." O'Donnell decided he would go on, but more moderately. He said, quietly and reasonably, "I think there is one thing you're overlooking, Mr. Swan. You say that illness and disease are nature's levelers, but many of these things haven't come to us in the natural course of nature. They are the result of man's own environment, conditions he's created himself. Bad sanitation, lack of hygiene, slums, air pollution, those aren't natural things. They are man's creation. They are part of evolution, and evolution is a part of nature. It all adds up to the balancing process." Admiringly, O'Donnell thought, "You can't shake the old son of a gun easily." But he saw the chink in the other's argument. He said, "If you are right, then medicine is a part of the balancing process too." Swan snapped back, "How do you reason that?" "Because medicine is a part of evolution." Despite his good resolution, O'Donnell felt his voice grow more intense. "Because every change of environment that man has had produced its problems for medicine to face and to try to solve. We never solve them entirely. Medicine is always a little behind. And as fast as we meet one problem, there is a new one appearing ahead. But they are problems of medicine, not nature." Swan's eyes had a malicious gleam. "If nature were left alone, it would settle its problems before they arose, by natural selection of the fittest." "You are wrong, and I'll tell you why." O'Donnell had ceased to care about the effect of his words. He felt only that this was something he had to express, to himself as well as to the others. Medicine has only one real problem. It's always been the same, it always will. It's the problem of individual human survival. He paused. "And survival is the oldest law of nature." "Bravo!" Impulsively, Amelia Brown clapped her palms together. But O'Donnell had not quite finished. "That's why we fought polio, Mr. Swan, and the Black Plague." Page 99, Hailey. The final diagnosis.